Cop shoots almost nude suspect. ABC 7 report.
From a Winchell's donut shop robbery that led to a police shooting.
It is alarming video in a lot of ways. LAPD just released their officer body camera video, but we begin with the crazy surveillance video from inside that store.
The suspect, 41-year-old Christopher Hall, was scantily dressed when he walked up to the counter back in May, threatening workers with a gun and a knife. Moments later, workers were assaulted with that gun.
Scantily dressed. The dude looks like a frickin' fruitcake. Holy cow. You walk into a donut shop like this. Jesus.
And a pan full of cinnamon rolls before they tossed a bundle of cash at Hall. At that point, they began fighting back, hitting him with a cart. Someone even threw a chair at Hall as he took off down the street. Police found him at a nearby apartment complex where they ordered him to drop the weapon as they chased him down a narrow pathway. Instead, he pointed it at them, and that's when one of the officers opened fire.
Hey! Get on the ground, dude! Hey! You hear that gunshot. Hall wasn't hit, though. You see he tossed what appeared to be a gun there, and then it climbed a fence but didn't get far. When officers finally caught up with him again, they used a taser and managed to take him into custody. They did recover an airsoft replica handgun and also a knife. Hall is now charged with robbery and assault with a deadly weapon.
The dude's lucky to be alive. Forget the get-up. Pointing at any type of thing that looks like a gun at a cop. This one's great. Supreme Court allows President Trump to continue to gut the Department of Education. Yes! We'll have more on this later on in the show. Donald J. participated in the White House faith luncheon.
Good to get it up. Then this guy comes along. Have you lifted before? Yes, at a low level. He was a low level lifter as a man, but transitioned. And he goes up to that thing. Bing, 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 bing. Could have done it all day long. Broke the record by 119 pounds. The whole thing is crazy. The swimming records are pretty good, too. You had to see that. I told the story. You had this great group of young ladies, and they grew up with each other because, you know, they sort of swam at the top level. And they were swimming, and the one girl was seriously injured. She looked left, and she saw the same girl she grew up with, Kelly, in California. Same girls, you know, that young age, they sort of rise to the top. She looked to the right, she saw the same girls, but there was this giant standing right next to her. And he had transitioned, you probably heard this, he had transitioned. And she'd never seen her before. And when the race was started, he blew by her so fast that she suffered massive wind burn. They had to take her.
We're glad to have President 45 and 47 Donald J. Trump a year and a day after that attempted assassination that did not, just for a turn of the head, and we get the chart and everything to go on that. Plus, yesterday, 32 years ago, on July 13th, we lost Davey Allison, son of NASCAR Hall of Famer Bobby Allison, and Davey is too, I believe. Such a young talent to lose at such a young age, but fortunately, we didn't lose Donald J. I wouldn't call them jail cells. Secretary Kristi Noem describes conditions at Alligator Alcatraz, taking it to the psycho chick, Kristen Welker, on Meet the Depressed. This professor threw tear gas at the cops on that weed farm bus. We're going to have a lot more on that to come with Tom Homan and his comments and Bill Asaley, along with the 10,000 kids that have been rescued, 14 of them at the pot farm in ridiculous California. Trump sues California over egg prices. This and much, much more. Dr. Kelly will be a great Monday, July 14th. It's absolutely incredible, some of the things that happen. It was a rather light local news weekend, though. It comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 in the Evil FB Network, Rumble, X, YouTube, and the Roy Blackert channel. Again, it was a light. Not a lot in the local stuff. The national kept us popping, though. Good guys for them. Trump, a year and a day since the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. What, they suspended or something 6 of the Secret Service agents. And I just want to touch on a little bit the whole flap over the Epstein and the files, and are they going to do this, and is Bongino and Cash quitting? Well, it was tweeted out Dan Bongino was in the office today, was mentioning he was going to be working on some big projects and stuff. So I don't necessarily think the world's falling apart over the Epstein stuff. I do think we need to have the documents and whatever's there. Don't necessarily take Pam Bondi's word. Let's just, and then if there's nothing there, then just show us the documents. Eliminate the problem. If there's there's point of special. If you can't handle the job, point a special prosecutor. And there's conflict of interest. Point Matt Gaetz, a special prosecutor. This and Crossfire Hurricane and all this stuff, and let him do his thing. I wish Pam Bondi would stop running her jaw and being a drama queen, trying to get on TV every 30 minutes without anything to say. That's my biggest criticism. She has something to add, like Kristi Noem or Bill Saley or Tom Homan, Robert Kennedy Jr., J.D. Vance. Fine. But don't go throwing stuff out and then not be able to back it up. So we'll see what Trump does with this whole thing. This one is huge. The Supreme Court says, fire them all. Well, maybe not all, but you can, if they accomplish this, if they accomplish actually getting rid of the Department of Education, another payoff deal to the greedy teachers in 1979 that Jimmy Carter did this so you guys could get more money. You don't give a crap about kids. Don't give me the sad story. Look at the performance. You're money grubbing. Don't give a crap. And there's always exceptions to the rule, but overall, your profession has ran kids' education in the ground, and that's what we paid you to do, and you've screwed it up. And if you want to come in here, please come in here and let's have a discussion about it. Give you the time you need to give your side of the case. And I'm not talking about any individual teacher. I'm talking about the profession, public education, nationally, California especially, the crime syndicate in particular. No more sing-song stories. No more excuses. Let's lay it on the line. Here's ABC 7 report.
This is breaking news. The Supreme Court is letting President Trump move forward with plans to lay off nearly 1,400 Education Department employees. The ruling came down this afternoon, pausing a lower court's order that blocked those layoffs. It clears the way for the administration to resume its push to dismantle the department, something the president has pushed since the campaign. The court's 3 liberal judges opposed the move, warning it could seriously weaken.
Oh, shut up. Again, all you in the education teachers, whatever you got, bring it. Bring it. Bring it. Don't give me, don't give no excuses, not no one-off anecdotes. Bring your overall performance since the Department of Education in 1979 versus how much money we've spent. Can tell you it's 24 grand per student. Can tell you since that time, well, just a little bit before, you're making twice inflation adjusted from what teachers did 50 years ago. So why are kids stupid? No more excuses. There's the chart. The chart made by Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson on illegal immigration and border encounters. And as he said, Trump never turns his head sideways. He'll do this and he'll kind of do that. He turned sideways to look at that chart as Crooks fired the shot that had Trump not killed his head, he would have been deader than a doornail. That's the chart that he turned his head, very out of character for him, at the precise second Crooks pulled the trigger. 1 year and 1 day ago today. The whole psycho chick, Mockingbird Media, Kristi Noem, Homeland Security Chief, on with the psycho chick on Meet the Depressed, Kristen Welker.
Florida, which your administration has dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz said that the conditions there are inhumane, more than 30 people stuffed into a jail cell. She said they get their drinking water and they brush their teeth from the same place where they go to the bathroom. Madam Secretary, what do you say to these lawmakers who argue this is not humane treatment of individuals?
This is not humane treatment of individuals. I love a response.
Humans.
Well, our detention centers at the federal level are held to a higher standard than most local or state centers and even federal prisons. The standards are extremely high. Now, this is a state-run facility at Alligator Alcatraz, but they have a
stuffed into a jail cell?
They have a contrast. Well, I've been there and I've seen these rooms that they are in. I wouldn't call them jail cells. I would call them a facility where they are held and that are secure facilities, but are held to the highest levels of what the federal government requires for detention facilities.
Democrats have called them cages, though.
Democrats have called them cages. Cages. Remember the whole Trump's putting the kids in that came over from the border into cages, if that's what you want to call them, the Barack Obama frickin' built. These yo-yos. I don't know how Kristi Noem didn't go over there and just strangle her. And I'm betting in a cat fight between Psycho Chick Welker and Kristi Noem, we all know her story, that Christie would absolutely kick her ass. And on the intellectual level, she destroyed the doofuses. So what I do like about Trump 2.0, most sends a Pam Bondi or two. Most are very articulate and get their point across and don't back down. Gotta love this one from Secretary Department of Homeland Security Kristi Noem.
But anybody from any other country, you get to wave that away. That's absolutely insanity. No country does that. There's nobody that actually defends that except for the fake news and a bunch of liberals who actually are turning out to be communists and Marxists. They're not just liberals anymore. If you look at the Democrat Party, they're a party of communists and Marxists and socialists. So I would completely say nobody defends that. No American.
Yes, how do you defend that? And they are. They're a party of socialists, communists, tyrants, dictators, cartel-running members. And I'm glad Christie calls them out as they should be called out. Not, we should have 7 years ago debates. No. Call a spade, trash a trash, and idiots, idiots. No more backing down or backing up for any reason. Of course, we had this one with the big local story. Oh, the ICE. That mean Tom Homan and Kristi Noem and Bill Asaley. They raided a farm in Camarillo, California. Strawberries. Well, when you think of a farm in Ventura County, you think of strawberries. Who knew they were growing weed? This is what we got. Oh, they arrested a professor. Oh, we demand he be released. Say the Churla gang and the Brad Shermans and the Alex Padillas and the Adam Schiffs and the whole crew. Oh, they're torturing this guy. Probably beating him with whips and chains in the jail. Oh, you heard this all weekend. Along with the dude that jumped off the roof or something, broke his neck or whatever, severe head injury, and they finally shut off the life support system. Well, hey, if you're here in this country legally and lawfully, why are you jumping off the building? Why are you hiding in the refrigerator? It's a wonder some of them didn't die hiding in the refrigerator. You know there's hardly any oxygen in there. If you're not doing anything illegal, if you're not throwing gas canisters or firing weapons at law enforcement officers, you got nothing to worry about. Stuff is ridiculous. No wonder. I'm glad Trump, like Asaley said, we're issuing the orders. If you mess with any of the Fed offices or Fed operations, you will be arrested and charged. Again, KTLA, California State University, Channel Islands, is calling for immediate release of one of their professors who was detained during the protest on Thursday. Detained. As you see, Asaley writes, Jonathan Cavallero was not kidnapped by federal agents. He was arrested for throwing a tear gas canister at law enforcement. Of course, it was just a gas canister on the KTLA 5 deal. He is charged with violation 18 U.S.C. 111 and will have a court appearance tomorrow. This is what we voted for. Enforce the law and the general principles of the United States of America. You pledge allegiance to this country. You fly the flag of the United States of America. You learn English. You pledge your allegiance to the United States of America, not Mexico, not Venezuela, not China, not Russia, not Ethiopia, the U.S. of A. Flags. You wave the flag of America. That's pledging your allegiance. The great Tom Homan.
It strikes me unbelievable that the Democrats are not on board. When you look at this raid, there were 10 juveniles that were illegally brought across the border. You and I covered this under the Biden administration. I was down in Texas. We encountered 8, 10-year-old, 12-year-olds coming across with just a name and an address and a phone number on their necks, the cartel ruthlessly sending them across. And yet now we know that 10 of them, 8 of which were unaccompanied minors working illegally in a marijuana farm, and your agents go in and rescue them essentially, and yet there is violent resistance to that. Does that upset you?
It certainly upsets me, and like I said, you know, the work men and women of ICE are doing is incredible. Look, we're looking for over 300,000 missing children. We've already found 10,000. Have you heard that anywhere? No, the media is simply not covering it. And look, this should be a nonpartisan issue. Arresting public safety threats and national security threats, everybody be all the same page on that. Rescuing children, I mean, it should be a nonpartisan issue.
Of course. 10,000 kids so far, up to 14 now is the number out of the weed farm in Camarillo. Like I said, look to California to mess up the weed deal. How do you know how much of this stuff? Now, they don't have to do illegal grows. They can grow, what? This is my theory. Let's put it, my opinion. The Mexican and Chinese drug cartels, now, they don't have to do a grow house. They can legally have a house. How do you know all the weed out of these Camarillo, these 2 Ventura facilities and everything else? How do you know all of that is going to a legitimate marijuana store? It is not being laundered through the cartels. It's all cash business. Even if it goes to that, they're all paying cash. How are you going to trace it? You're not going to get a check going from whatever dispensary, Acme dispensary, to the weed grow house. It's all done in cash. You can't even hardly trace this. It would take you eons. Again, look at the cartels. The black market in marijuana is bigger now than before we passed legalized marijuana in California. And now you can't hardly bust them for possession. If they got small amounts, you can't, so the cops don't even worry about that. They're not committing any crimes anymore by just having any amount. You got to have over a certain amount and everything else. And you can tell they blew this. Look at all the money we were supposed to collect in taxes. It's a scant pittance coming in. And I believe at the end of the day, when history writes it, my theory is going to be proven right. We've actually strengthened the cartels by making it legal to grow it. Now we don't even know where it goes or how much of it. California is definitely in the last 30 years has went to a totally bizarro state of affairs. It's incredible of what we do.
You got about 30 seconds, Roy.
As Sean has said, we will be joining the Mighty Met KMET here in a few seconds. Hopefully we'll have Dr. Kelly Victory on. Well, no, maybe we won't.
Uh-oh.
See you. And then the phone won't hang up. See if she calls back. You know why I pitched her off? Oh, it started today with all the technical crap. So
Here we go, 10 seconds.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this program. Not necessarily those of radio station KMET, management, and employees or affiliates.
there's that funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire in the aforementioned AM band. Join our vast video audience in the Evil Beat Network, Rumble, X, YouTube, on the Roy Blecker channel. Seems to be working pretty good. Maybe they just don't like IE Newswire. Maybe they think I'm a different person. Anyway, lots of stuff going on of that. Man, the whole thing. 10,000 kids have been recovered that have came across the border. Nobody knew, no parents, no identities, no nothing. 14 of them they've just found at the weed farm there in Ventura County. And you hardly hear a peep of it. All you heard from Thursday over the weekend is, they were arresting and they're being tortured and they're all that. And they arrested a professor who allegedly threw tear gas at the cops. No wonder the dude is in the hoos cow, and hopefully he is charged. And if he's charged and convicted, serves his whole darn sentence. We're not putting up with this ridiculous crapiola any longer for any reason. But as we usually do on a Monday, we have, as I've determined her, this supreme physician in all the world, expert on COVID-19 and just about everything else, Dr. Kelly Victory. Welcome to IE Newswire with Roy.
Hey, Roy, happy Monday. Always happy to join you. And this news that's coming out about these kids is just so infuriating. It makes my blood boil. So I'm with you.
100%. I mean, 10,000 they recovered. There were estimates as high as 750,000 of the, 10, 20, 30 million. Kids, minors coming across the border. No, they just gave them to people. One lady, that whistleblower that was on O'Keefe's deal, guy comes in and just scoops up 20 of them in one shot. Oh, yeah. We can just imagine what those kids are going through right now. As I've said, they were getting trafficked. They're either getting sex trafficked or labor trafficked. We've been seeing both. This is just another one. Why? This should be the biggest nonpartisan. If there was ever a nonpartisan issue, Dr. Kelly, this should be it.
Yeah, I agree. The issue here, Roy, is that the liberals always want you to see, a very small slice of the immigration issue. They look at it as if deporting people, you are tearing families apart, as opposed to like, this isn't tearing families apart. They want you to believe that illegal immigration is a victimless crime, which it certainly is not. There are victims not only in this country, American citizens who have been targeted, raped, murdered, robbed, whatever else, but there are the victims who are these children who are defenseless against the traffickers, who are, trying to get to a better life, or their parents think they're getting them to a better life. But this illegal immigration has many, many victims. They are certainly American victims, but the immigrants themselves are victims. And if the Democrats cared at all, truly, about, civil rights, truly about, what is right for humanity, they would not allow this to happen. They wouldn't allow people to pour into this country where children are not with their legal parents, are not documented, and can be preyed upon by, as you said, sex traffickers, work traffickers, all of those things. We are turning this country into a cesspool, and many, many people are paying the price.
1,000% of all the stuff that's been going on. This upsets me, or has my concern, and has had for more than just about any other issue. Because if we can't protect kids, then it doesn't really matter what we're doing in the rest of society. And I mean, just kind of dovetail into the Epstein thing. If we can't protect kids or minors from whatever dangers are out there, that should be front and center. That's why we should, on both instances, and we are at least in the immigration, but same thing with the Epstein. We should know. Let it. If there's nothing going on, then let us see the documents, Dr. Kelly.
Yeah, wait, before I get to that, and I've got a lot of thoughts about that, go back to this, the illegal immigrant children. Where is AOC? AOC waiting, for her photo op. She's so worried about that, children were in cages, but she's not worried about the fact that children are being sex trafficked and, farmed out to marijuana. Whatever it is, farms or whatever operations, whatever the heck they're doing there. It's horrific, but they are nowhere to be found. You don't see AOC, worried about any of that. And you are 100% correct. There's a saying that you can judge a society by the way that it treats its weakest members or its most vulnerable members. And in our case, that happens to be children. And the idea that, we're just going to somehow sweep this Epstein thing under the rug, I smell a rat. I have from the beginning. I'm here to tell you, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. And there is a list that all of people who are involved in this, or at least visited that island, who are really deserve to be at least questioned. And I am perplexed as to exactly what is going on now that Pam Bondi has done a 180 and went from saying, I have the list and I'm going to release it, to all of a sudden, oh, there is no list. And there clearly is some dissatisfaction, at best, friction, probably is a better word, between her and Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and other people. They clearly are not in agreement on how this should be handled. And it's my guess that Dan Bongino and Kash Patel are all for blowing this thing wide open, and Pam Bondi has gotten her marching orders that she's going to deep six this.
Whatever's going on, it doesn't, they need to come to a head. If Pam Bondi can't handle this, and I'm not big on the special prosecutor stuff, but put in a decent, Matt Gaetz would be my suggestion, special prosecutor to go after this stuff. Let's put it out there. Let's, and maybe if there's too much conflict with the government or stuff, well, that's what a special prosecutor is supposed to be. Again, I'm not big fans of them or whatever. Just release the documents, however you want to do it, Pam, but you better come up with some answers here pretty quick, because it's hijacking the rest of the good things that are being done in the Trump administration, in my opinion, Dr. Kelly.
No, I think that's exactly right. And we were led to believe when Trump ran that this was going to be a different administration. They said they were going to release all of the Kennedy files, right? The Warren Commission files. We were going to find out the truth about all kinds of things. And we were led to believe that we would not have this kind of obfuscation from the Justice Department. So I think many people, myself included, are very disillusioned right now to hear, as I said, we're going to be transparent. And then all of a sudden, this is the biggest cover-up that I can tell, we aren't hearing anything. Furthermore, I'll throw another one in the mix. We just marked the 1-year anniversary from the assassination attempt of Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. And I have said from day one, Crooks, that kid, that 20-year-old disaffected, disenfranchised, socially awkward kid, wasn't the shooter. Okay? I'm here to tell you, he wasn't the shooter. We need to know what actually happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. So there are all of these things that we are being told that the government is going to, be transparent about, and it's not feeling that way. And this thing with Epstein is so distressing because, again, frankly, even if you were to say, I don't really care about, people who visited the island who may not have been a participant, the issue is, how do we get to find out the truth and be able to exact some sort of, justice for these children whose lives, in many cases, appear to have been destroyed?
That's the biggest thing on this is, again, what if there was, like to say there was nothing going on over there, then what the hell is Maxwell doing in jail? Why were you charging? What were you charging Epstein
Correct.
for? I mean, before whatever happened to him, if he's dead, if he's living on another island somewhere, or whatever the hell happened, why all the hoopla? If everything was legit, why all the commotion in the first place? In fact, if that was the case, if there was nothing going on, Maxwell, and if Epstein is still around or his relatives, should be suing the hell out of the government for doing this. The whole thing doesn't smell right, and this is going into the midterms next year. Trump needs to get, in my opinion, a hold of this somehow. Release it, come up with an explanation, say this is what, appoint a special prosecutor, fire Pam Bondi, whatever, but something's got to happen, Dr. Kelly.
I agree, and you made a very important point, which is that if this is the way we're going to treat this, if this is the way that Pam Bondi and President Trump are going to treat this, then Ghislaine Maxwell should be released from prison in about 5 minutes, because there's absolutely zero justification for her to be incarcerated if this is a big nothing burger that they want us all to believe. So it either there is something there or there isn't. You can't have it both ways. And unfortunately, I don't know whose names are on the list. I know what I hear in the mainstream media and stuff that gets leaked. But the reality is, if there are people out there, important people who could be embarrassed or who may have to explain themselves and say, yes, I was there, but I didn't participate in this. Okay. You are known for the company you keep. Donald Trump refers to Jeffrey Epstein as a creep. Well, okay, let's find out who was hanging out with the creep, and who may or may not have been participant in what sounds like a decades-long, really history of abusing children. It's quite disturbing, but I don't see how Trump and Bondi and this administration get away with covering this up. People are not going to let it go. And there are important people out there who are not going to let it go, including people like Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and Milo Stephanopoulos and others who are really pounding the drum and saying, no, not this time.
Switching gears a little bit, Jay Bhattacharya, the NIH director, put this out last week. Today, NIH announced a new policy to cap how much publishers can charge NIH-supported scientists to make their work publicly accessible. This reflects our broader effort to restore public trust in the public health by creating open, honest, and transparent research atmosphere. Is that happening, Dr. Kelly?
Well, I haven't seen it start to happen yet, but I think it's a move in the right direction. One of the things I thought was very important was that they'd made an announcement some time ago that NIH researchers were simply not going to publish in the mainstream journals, meaning the Lancet, JAMA, BMJ, because there is no scientific integrity in those journals. And they said that they were going to start a journal of their own for the NIH. As much as we can do, anything we can do to try to clean up the perverse incentives that are going on right now. Big Pharma fundamentally owns all of those journals. And you are hard-pressed as a scientist to get a study published in one of those journals unless the study comes to the conclusion that the pharmaceutical company paid for it to come to, okay? If you don't, come to whatever they tell you you're going to come to, then your study just gets deep-sixed and never gets published, never gets peer-reviewed. That's how it works. So those journals have for decades, Roy, been nothing more than the marketing arm for Big Pharma. I don't believe anything, frankly. If somebody says, yeah, well, it was in the Lancet, I'm like, that's the death knell. If it was in the Lancet, that just means it's absolutely not believable. And that's a tragedy because it puts physicians and scientists in a very, very bad position to know where to turn to get the actual science. So anything I believe that the people at HHS, whether it's Jay Bhattacharya or Bobby Kennedy Jr. can do, one of the things that Bobby had talked about in the past, he said he would just bring the editors of those journals in to his office and say, either you stop, you end your relationship with Big Pharma. In other words, stop taking money from Big Pharma, or I'm going to bring a RICO case against you. I'm going to call it racketeering. Because if you are, taking in millions and millions of dollars from Big Pharma to run your journal, that's racketeering because you are simply selling drugs. You aren't running a research magazine or research journal. So it's going to take a long time, Roy, to regain public trust, to regain people's confidence in the integrity of medical science. That's for darn sure. I hear every single day people tell me, that they simply, won't even go to a hospital. They won't go to a doctor. They don't want to listen to what anybody has to say because we lost so much credibility, not only during the pandemic, but everything that has been exposed as a result. Now we are exposing, again, decades and decades of fraud, far predating COVID. We're finding out, Bobby Kennedy, for example, made the announcement, a true fact, that in 1999, okay, we're talking 26 years ago, the CDC did a study, their study, comparing rates of autism in children who received the Hep B vaccine in the first 30 days of life and compared them to children who either didn't receive it at all or received it after the age of 2. And they found an 1,135% increase in autism in those kids who'd gotten the Hep B vaccine in the first 30 days of life. That was 26 years ago. They deep-sixed that study, their own study. They have lied about it for more than a quarter of a century. Okay? These are the kinds of things that undermine confidence in public health, and we have got to fix this.
One more thing on that, and on both of those, we need confidence in everything. Rand Paul said he was going to reissue his criminal referral on the F word, Fauci, to the Department of Justice. This is another thing the Department of Justice can get their credibility back, is if there's anybody that deserves to be investigated, and if he's committed crimes, charged and be in prison, it's Dr. Anthony Fauci, Dr. Kelly Victory.
I 100% agree. The idea that the Republicans have not followed through and actually held Anthony Fauci to task. He perjured himself amongst other crimes against humanity. He perjured himself over and over again in front of Congress on things related to the origin of the virus, the involvement of our own government in gain-of-function research over at the lab in Wuhan, and on and on. He has got to be held accountable. This is absolutely horrific. Likewise, charges cannot be dropped against these pharmaceutical companies that have falsified documents, lied to the government, lied to the FDA in order to get their approvals. We need people in Congress to stop focusing on the next campaign and to start focusing on doing the people's work. And that means holding people to account for the debacle that was the COVID pandemic response.
Got a couple minutes left. Anything else on your radar screen our audience should know about?
Well, I'm trying to focus on some of the positive things. Would be that Bobby Kennedy is continuing to chip away at some of the things that have been plaguing our food system, our food source. Certainly, he is now. I guess he and Brooke Reynolds, the USDA secretary, met with a bunch of ice cream manufacturers, and 90% of them have agreed to eliminate artificial coloring and artificial dyes and flavorings from their ice creams. So that's good for ice cream eaters like myself. The more we can do to clean up the food system, the better. We certainly have not gotten to the bottom of what is causing the epidemic that we have of autism and other neuropsychiatric disorders. And epidemic is exactly what it is right now. But I think it's fair to conclude that it's certainly something in the environment. I believe that vaccines are a likely cause, but it certainly can be some of these other food additives and colorings, all of this. And so I think that's really an important thing. I would love to see him tackle the glyphosates that are being used in the treatment of our of grains, primarily wheat, because I think that, frankly, I would guess that 95% of Americans who believe that they have a, quote, gluten issue, either a gluten allergy or a gluten sensitivity. In fact, it is not the gluten at all. It is the glyphosates that are being sprayed on the wheat that are causing all of these ill effects, whether it's bloating, gas, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, whatever it is, inflammatory issues. I believe it's the glyphosates. The actual incidence of celiac disease, true gluten allergy, is really very low. It's less than 0.5%. And I believe, we have created an entire industry, gluten-free sections in the grocery store and gluten-free menus. And I don't think this has anything to do with gluten. I think it has all to do with pesticides that are being used.
Best ice cream made in a wooden bucket, hand cranked, with rock salt and ice to freeze it up. It will absolutely blow your mind. Thanks for being on, Dr. Kelly. We'll do this again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Roy.
Dr. Kelly Victory, as we say, saying it only as she can. Oh, boy. Let's see if we can get to some of the local genre, as we say. Oh, I just love my equipment at this time of day. You didn't get to this one, but that clown, arrogant jackass, Gavin Newsom, and the whole J.D. Vance thing. It was, J.D. Vance is down there at Disneyland. And Newsom has a spot off. And I don't even want to denigrate or his comments. But I love JD's response. Basically, have a nice day, Gavin. I can't enjoy a day at Disneyland with my family without you trying to make a political scene about it. Suspect with prior convictions arrested for theft at a local retail store in Rancho Cucamonga. Multiple priors. Yeah, there's that ding-a-ling, gosh. City of Chino did a traffic stop, found weapons, meth, say it ain't so, freshly cut catalytic converter on top of that. So good job, Chino cops, cleaning up the trash. This one is good. The only graph you need to know Well, again, my whole on this stuff, I just love my equipment today. There it is. The only graph you need to know. Trust in government, knowledge of history. The triangle. Don't trust anything any of them said. As Reagan said, trust, but verify. Our rat rod lineup of the day, if you see all that. Structure fire in Riverside. LA deputies missing assault-style rifle ammo from the trunk of the patrol car. I'm surprised this doesn't happen more. Some of the stuff in the way they park and leave things open. Man dies after altercation in Corona. Riverside County Sheriff investigates. Altercation, it was called a fight. So I think is a proper term for that. Why all the ridiculous sugarcoating? Corona man dies after fight in Glen Ivy, death under investigation. Lisa P. had the correct title on it. Congrats to Seth Hernandez from Corona High, who was drafted number 6 in the Major League Baseball draft for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So if he has a successful career. California Policy Centers, students deserve options no on AB 84. That's a school choice deal. Pedestrian died in Colton in a traffic accident. Yes, the 1 year and 1 day anniversary of that. Nice picture of Mount Rubidoux. This is another one. Instead of locking up merchandise in stores, we should be locking up the people who steal it, just like the Rancho C cops did. That's what we're talking about. Riley's Farm was picking olive berries and raspberries out there in Oak Glen, so good job out there on that. Last one, Paris Sheriff Station on the DUI trail. And as we say, that'll do it for today. Mandatory, you're back here 23 hours live to hear the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya.
Proceeding was a.
All right, Roy, I will talk to you tomorrow.
You got it.